Ladies and gentlemen, I would first like to welcome Ketty Nivyabandi to the podium. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and special greetings to representatives of the Burundi government who I seem to see in the room. I'm glad that you're here and you'll be able to take this message home. I would like to talk to you today about one of the most severe democratic crises in the world. My country, Burundi, that is. And I'd like to talk to you about how democracy collapses and dictatorship rises under our very eyes, sometimes overnight, and most importantly, what we can and must do about it. In 2015, as you are aware, our president, a former rebel, forced his way into a third term in office, a completely illegal move which has thrown our country into absolute chaos. The country instantly broke into peaceful protests, which the police responded to with bullets and brutal, disproportionate force. Democracy died on April 26 with Komeza Mahoro, a 15-year-old Boy Scout who was shot by the police as he stepped outside to watch the protests. Since then, the repression has taken barbarian proportions. Nkurunziza's regime has killed, raped, abducted, tortured, and used the most unimaginable crimes to crush dissenting voices, democracy, and rule of law. I took active part in the protests by mobilizing women to come out and speak up against the violent repression. We protested peacefully but fearlessly, and as we called on the president to uphold the rule of law. We reminded him that to be president of the republic means to be at the service of the people and not the other way around. Instead, we were brutally repressed, as was anyone who dared to speak up against the third term. And today I am a refugee because challenging the regime in Burundi is equivalent to a death sentence. Many of the incredibly brave women who marched with me have since been abducted, raped, or murdered, and most of them have fled or are scattered in refugee camps in East Africa, while the rest remain tight-lipped in Burundi, keeping the lowest profile possible to survive. The crisis has turned 500,000 people, many of them women and children, into refugees. So my country has become a lawless dictatorship where one must conform and self-censor in order to survive. On the surface, things look calm, but it is an artificial calm. The regime has become more sophisticated in its repression. One of the new tactics of the regime is torture and enforced disappearances. People are captured in public spaces, never to be seen again. And a terrified population keeps quiet in order to stay alive. In modern dictatorships, mind you, people go to work, they attend weddings, they even go to the beach, but no one is free. Our security forces have free license to arrest anyone for any reason. Today, as Honorable Levy just mentioned, 3 schoolgirls, each 15, 16, and 17, are in jail for allegedly scribbling over the president's photograph in their school manuals. They face up to 5 years in prison. This is the extent of the absurdity we're faced with, a regime that considers children's doodles a threat to national security. I want to give you a few numbers. APRODH, a leading human rights organization, has documented 2,189 targeted killings since the start of the crisis. SOS Torture, another organization, has a record of 5,579 arbitrary arrests. 4,000 children are believed to have been trafficked. Ndondeza, a campaign for disappeared people, has 117 fully documented cases to date and hundreds more to investigate. These numbers are only the tip of the iceberg, as no human rights organization is currently allowed in the country. For the past 4 years, my colleagues from civil society have toured the world advocating for the rights of our people. But what is the purpose of raising awareness if it does not yield any action? At some point, we have to ask harder questions. Why is there such silence and inaction on the plight of Burundians today? And who profits from the abuse of power in Burundi? We need to begin to connect the dots between human rights, trade, and resource exploitation. We cannot dismantle oppressive regimes unless we analyze the complex networks that feed and sustain them. And some of them run very deep and often up to here in Geneva. So I am here to mobilize you for action. The people of Burundi have called for change. They have resisted oppression by peaceful means. They have been crushed, decimated before the eyes of the world. They are losing hope and choosing to conform with dictatorship for their safety and the safety of their loved ones. The rest are fed up, and today they are taking arms to make their frustrations heard. Because this is what dictatorship does. It ferments unaddressed injustices into armed conflict. Impunity breeds impunity. Oppression breeds oppression. Nkurunziza, our oppressor today, is himself a victim and a product of decades of impunity and oppression. The rebellion that he led was meant to liberate the country from past injustices. But as is the case with most armed liberations, power became too irresistible to let go of. So this is the vicious cycle that we must break. It's what made me risk my life in the streets and what made so many women march too. Beyond the immediate urgency of the moment, in our infinite feminine wisdom, we also knew that if we did not stop this regime in its tracks, we would be raising a broken generation. A generation that does not believe justice is worth standing up for. A generation crippled with fear and repressed frustration, which is the ultimate recipe for violence. In other words, we knew that by failing to address the Nkurunziza problem today, we would be planting the seeds for new Nkurunzizas to emerge tomorrow. So our struggle for true freedom continues, and we shall overcome. But we also need you, the people of the world, to stand with us. Burundians need your solidarity, and we all need each other here. One thing that's been obvious, sharing experiences with others in this conference, is that our oppressors support each other and use the same tactics. So for us to transform our societies, those of us who dream of freedom, of justice, of true peace, need to support each other because our struggles are interconnected. We cannot afford to let dictators who are growing more defiant and more organized than ever globally bully us into absolute disregard for human rights and dignity. Together we must keep rising with steely hope and the firm belief that another way is possible, and we must spread that belief around us through solidarity and robust action. So I urge you all to stand for our people and to support all oppressed people around the world today, because none of us here is truly free until all of us are free. And never, ever get discouraged. As we say in my beautiful language, Kirundi, however long the night, the sun always comes in the morning. Thank you.